Head in our invocation, Pastor Larry Powell, and we'll follow that with a pledge to the flag. Please rise.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we pause to give thanks for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for our great nation, for the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray your blessing and your protection over our nation, over our state. Pray your prosperity and your peace over our city. Father, we pray for protection over all of our law enforcement personnel as they patrol our streets. We thank you for these ladies and gentlemen that serve us here in this committee, in this council. Father, your word says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. We ask you tonight for your wisdom for every decision that comes before this council. All these things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated, please. Well, it says on here the roll call will be City Clerk Treasurer Kathy Collins. Ms. Collins is taking a little vacation this week. Let me introduce everybody to our city's executive administrator, Ms. Julie Palladino. Ms. Palladino, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Stuber?
Yes, here.
Mr. Holman?
Here.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Present.
Miss Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes, here.
Mr. Eaton?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Westcott?
Here.
Okay.
Looks like
We have a quorum. Council, you should have in your packet your minutes from last month. If there's no comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Motion. Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion, Mr. Wiley, and second was it me, Mr. Westcott. All in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. McCoy, do you have a financial report for us?
Financial report for September. General fund revenues were $869,613 for September. That's 2.1% above our projections. Sales tax revenues were $730,978. Franchise fees and permits were $33,596. And comparing last year's sales tax revenues compared to this year's revenues, we are less than 1% above last year in actual dollars.
You know how to make my day, don't you, Jerry?
I'm trying. General fund expenses were $1,127,030 for September, 2.2% below year-to-date projections. We've received $109,060 more than expended. Operational expenditures were $383,796 for the street fund. That's 0.5% above their projection. Sales tax receipts were $197,506. The new half-cent tax, $50,351. Street fund expenditures, $153,371 for September, 5.6% below year-to-date projection. Sales tax improvements were $326,855 for overlay and sidewalks. There was no capital expenditures. Economic development revenues were $53,053 for September, $52,607 was the new sales tax, $446 in interest. We had expenditures of $1,350 for mowing out industrial park. Capital assets revenues were $649,167 for September, $443,502 for the new sales tax, $5,665 for interest. Our expenditures were $705,591 for our City Corp, Building R&M, and Aquatic Center. One other thing that I had passed out to you, if you look, there's a the electronic payment request from Gov Deals, where we had our auction that you all approved last month. And we sold 14 items, and we made $23,736. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. McCoyne? Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
For my report, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping items, and then I want the council's help on thinking through something. A couple of months ago, you'll recall you guys approved some appointments to the Historic District. In a moment of forgetfulness, I forgot that Dixie McSpadden had relocated, and she actually lives slightly out of the city limits. That's ruled by Arkansas statute. Members of the district have to be electors of the city. So reluctantly, we had to take Ms. McSpadden off of there, but then we looked into, it was suggested by some historic district commissioners, and we got a confirmation from Ms. Polly Harden that she would be happy to serve on that and would be interested in it. So tonight, we're asking council to confirm Polly Harden as a commissioner for the historic district.
Move to approve. Second that.
So we have a motion, Mr. Eaton, and a second, Mr. Westcott. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Cemetery Commission has got a couple of openings coming up. They have submitted one name, and I think this, from their discussion, I think this will be a good fit for them, Miss Cindy Halas, and they're asking for your confirmation on that.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we got a motion, Mr. Wiley, and a second, Mr. Eaton. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That brings us to the third item, Halloween. And this is a discussion that actually Mrs. Wiley and I and several of us have really had going on for some time now. You know, we had a couple of trick-or-treaters struck by cars last year.
Yeah,
right?
last year.
Happens all over the country every year. I personally thought that a few years ago when my daughter was trick-or-treat age, the trend was going to organized events, go to the church, go to our fire stations. There's several different places, but apparently door-to-door trick-or-treating has made a comeback in the last few years. And so we're concerned about what options are available to kind of work those two items out together. I did get an expert to come to tonight's meeting in case you have questions for her, the good witch of the depot. Would you come on up, please, and be seen on camera? And,
Thank you, Mayor.
you know, some of the suggestions, yeah,
Actually, what did you call me?
the good witch of the depot.
I'm the downtown fair godmother. And these are my accoutrements, my orb and my scepter. And I want to invite each and every one of you to this year's 25th annual Downtown Fall Festival in Chippewa. But I know that there is also some discussion that potentially, either this year or in the future, that Halloween will be celebrated on the evening of Fall Festival. I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but I am.
Oh,
here
come
in my
on.
role, my expert role as the downtown fair godmother, and can offer up any type of guidance and counsel that you would like.
That was one concern that, you know, there was a suggestion somewhere that maybe it should always be on Saturday. And the right Saturday would be the last Saturday of October. Well, that happens to fall on Fall Fest Day around here, and so that was a concern, whether it would interfere with Fall Fest. But Ms. McGuire assures me that it would just add to it, having kids come down dressed up.
It would be lovely. And I want you all to know that the mayor will be presenting during our opening ceremony at this next Saturday's Fall Festival. So
Mayor?
come out and
Yep.
join us. We're gonna have a great evening. We've got food trucks. We've got over 130 booths set up throughout downtown. A 5,000
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
someone suggested today that we open up the downtown area for trick-or-treaters and just have it mostly downtown and make it a big event at all the stores. And then we wouldn't have to worry about children running up and down the streets. So
Yeah,
that's something that we might be able to look at for next year.
It's an idea. Chief Sloan, all of your fire stations trick or treat, right? The churches do it,
And then the Hughes Center does it,
Hughes Center does it.
so we could fix it to where the children didn't have to go out on the streets and have a chance of them getting hit. So it's something to think about.
I don't know where to go from here. It's not really a government-sponsored holiday. We don't get that day off, do we? No.
But if
We
we
don't get
could,
that day off, so it's hard for us to dictate how people want to celebrate this particular
but if
deal.
we get people start thinking about different options, then we might come up with, let the community come together and come up with some good ideas, like we've already got started, the churches, the fire stations, so on, so on.
I agree. Does anybody else on the council have some suggestions or?
So are you making a proclamation that Halloween's going to be on?
Can't we, no.
I don't know that we really can. I have seen cities, individual cities, when Halloween falls on a Sunday, a lot of the churches don't really like celebrating ghosts and goblins on Sunday, and I have seen individual cities declare that they will,
Do it on
that it will be
Saturday.
observed on Saturday. But flat out changing it like that, I mean, I don't know how we would make people celebrate.
That would be up to the people. That's why I said I think we need some suggestions from the cities, the communities, and see what the communities' thoughts are on this issue.
There was a suggestion at one
You want-
point that we not do it after
You
dark,
want-
but that's part of the mystique
That's
of it.
part
I
of
don't
it.
know that we'd get a lot of buy-in on
Yeah.
that, so.
You want some thoughts on that?
Well, that's why
Yes,
we
sir.
open it
I
up.
think when we do that, we ought to just change New Year's also.
We'll look into that one too. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Think about it and, you know, the public and everybody else, if you get an idea that you think the general public would agree with, we'd be happy to hear them. So that'll be the end of my report. This is a good one every year. Tonight's department report is Chief Jeff Humphrey, Russellville Police Department. 30 minutes, Chief, no more.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As you're aware, for the past 18 months at the Russellville Police Department, we've been aggressively working on becoming a state-accredited police department. I'm pleased to announce that we have completed this task, and we've met all the necessary requirements in doing this. And tonight, we're going to be receiving our award. Our presenter tonight is Mr. Gary Sipes. Gary is the Arkansas Law Enforcement Accreditation Program Director. He's also a former Jacksonville and Benton Police Chief, and he's a current and FBI National Academy graduate. And he's currently an investigator with the Arkansas Attorney General's Office. He's going to explain about the accreditation process, the program, its importance, what we had to go through to become accredited, and what we'll have to do to remain accredited. So at this time, I'd like to have Mr. Gary Sipes come up and present the award to us and explain to you what this means.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, Council, I appreciate the opportunity to take just a few minutes out of your agenda to discuss and present this award to your police department. Before I do that, I'd like to give you a little history on how we got to where we're at today. In 2010, the Arkansas Association of Chiefs of Police got together and discussed how we could make the police departments across the state more professional. We decided that what we needed to do was to form policies and procedures, because there's so many small departments across our state that has zero policy and procedure. They either don't have the resources to do so or the abilities. So we started off with that. We've got approximately 50 policies and procedures now uploaded on our website in which the agencies can go to, and for absolutely free, they can download these policies and use them immediately. Second phase of this was we wanted to offer training to the departments across the state. And we were able to do that with the same firm that we contracted with on the policies. So now we have several classes that are available to them online, again at no cost, and these have been approved by the Commission on Law Enforcement Standards and Training. So the officers, as they go through these courses, they take a test, and they also get the credit through our training. Third phase was the Arkansas Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, and the most important part, we think. We joined 26 other states across the nation that have state accreditation. And to get in to be approved for this accreditation award, the departments have to meet and prove they are up to meeting the 188 standards that the police chiefs identified as the most crucial ones that law enforcement faces on a daily basis. They are anywhere from taking the cash transaction at the police department to response to resistance, to officer-involved shooting, and to budgeting. It covers a whole realm of different things. I have to say that working with Captain Ewan and Chief Humphrey was a great pleasure. They worked hard. They were frustrated a little bit when we'd give them a phone call and tell them that something wasn't exactly right, but they got right on the ball and they got it right. So I can tell you tonight that your department met and surpassed on most cases in these standards. It's a great honor to be here tonight and to present this presentation to the Russellville Police Department, Chief Humphrey.
I'd like to take a few moments to acknowledge 3 members of my command staff at the Russellville Police Department who all assisted in making this happen. I assure you that my involvement was not near what it was for these 3 guys, and especially the first officer I want to mention, Captain David Ewing. David is our patrol commander and a former Officer of the Year recipient. The entire accreditation process would not have occurred without his unyielding commitment. I do not take for granted what he did to accomplish this process. It was a tremendous undertaking, and he made it happen. As Gary mentioned, there were a lot of times that David would come to us and say, we've got to do more, and we need to get it done quickly. And when it was over with, we were getting kind of tired of this guy. But David, I want to thank you for what you did. I know how much work you put into that, and what your commitment is to our department is just continues to make us the professional police department and the officers that we are. So thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Captain J.J. Smith. J.J. Smith is our Criminal Investigations Division Commander, and he just recently graduated the 10-week FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Less than 0.5% of U.S. police officers ever get the opportunity to attend this academy. J.J. is our 6th officer from the Russellville Police Department to attend the FBI Academy, which is quite an honor. And it says a lot for the Russellville Police Department and the city of Russellville. Congratulations, JJ. Finally, I'd like to recognize Captain Kerry James. Kerry is our Administrative Division Commander. He's also a former Officer of the Year recipient. Kerry has served as a field training officer, motor vehicle accident reconstructionist, field supervisor, and detective. His most recent assignment was detective supervisor prior to being promoted to captain earlier this year. Kerry, I want to welcome you as our newest member of the command staff. Switch gears a little bit. Finally, I want to say that we're about halfway, a little over halfway through our annual Citizens Police Academy. And this year, we're honored to have 3 members from our own local city government. We have the Mayor's Administrative Assistant, Julie Palladino Vaughn, seated right there. We have Human Resource Director, Tanessa Vaughn, in our audience. And we have Alderman Eric Westcott. And I look forward to seeing the 3 of you graduation night. That is, if you graduate. This is my presentation for this year. It's a little shorter than usual, and I just wanted to bring an emphasis on these guys here that make the department, I think, what it is. It makes my job easy. These guys have a tremendous amount of commitment to seeing that we do things right at the police department, the 3 major divisions that we have. And I could not stand here and speak before you without these guys at my side and their support. They care about their jobs, they care about the city, they care about the citizens, and every day they show it in what they do. This is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Finance Committee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On the 11th of this month, we had our first meeting regarding finances, and I want to just bring this first item up that we had, that we approved as the Finance Committee separately. It was a consideration of a resolution authorizing the sale of real property located at 917 West 2nd Street. And the sale of this property, if you want to call it that, was to be recommended to go to the Habitat for Humanity, the local chapter, in regard to that. Mr. Burt Fleck is here in regard to that, and he may want to say something, or if you as a council have questions in that regard, he is here for that. So with that said, I would entertain a motion that we approve this so we can have proper discussion on that.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Does anyone have any question about this? And Mr. Wiley, at our meeting that evening, you made a particular proposal on how to handle this particular thing. And Mr. Fleck, if you have any comments or questions that you would like to make in regard to that.
I'll just say a few words about Habitat for Humanity. You know, basically, it's not, you're not giving property or a house to the family. The family has to put in so many service hours, and they get the property plus the land interest-free. So basically, let's just say it takes $60,000 to $70,000 to build the house with volunteers here in the community, and whatever
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. Mr. Wiley, if I understood and recall, the way that motion was made and approved last week was that we give this property to Habitat, but that it would have a $1,000 proposal where we would take donations for the next 30 days to offset that cost. Am I?
That's correct.
Correct.
Anybody in the city or county that wants to donate.
So, and the reason I bring this up is, Mr. Smith, I'm not sure how we prepare that kind of agreement, and I would enjoy hearing from you on that.
Not really sure how either. I don't know that giving property away in exchange for a donation from third parties would make it a legal type exchange. That's the way I understand that you're saying.
Well, they're gonna be paying $1,000. If we don't get $1,000 in donation, they're gonna pay the rest of what we don't get.
But you're giving property to a second party in exchange for payment from a third party that's not contracted.
Yeah.
I think the deal was we were gonna sell it to Habitat and,
Yeah.
try to get them, try to help them raise the $1,000, so they would get the $1,000 and pay us.
Well,
On
my-
your recommendation, we sell it to them for $1,000, right?
Right. I mean, that's more
Yeah.
defensible legally because you're getting consideration directly from the person
And
who's
then,
getting the
then we
property.
can put the rest of that in there.
The donations would be a separate deal to
Yeah.
them from whoever's interested.
My recommendation would be that we reconsider this particular resolution here, and I've got a different opinion about how we ought to go about that, and I think one or two of the council members that are not on the finance committee do also, and I would like to hear in that regard.
Of course, personally, I think we need to give it to them because, like you said, that is not a real desirable piece of property. It's gonna take some cleaning up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of it's in the floodplain, correct?
That's what I was told today.
That is correct.
And that's going to be an added expense for whoever buys the property. It may, if it's my understanding, it's a foot, it has to be built up a foot to be built on, but that's no big deal because they'll probably build it up that much more anyway. But what can get to be a big deal is flood insurance on it for the duration of the loan or whatever. That's an expense that, so, and I know Trey has advised us against it, but, and I'm sure he's right, but I'm for giving them a piece of property and going on.
Well, if we sell it to them for $1,000 and then we take donation, I think there's enough people in the area that would help cover that $1,000, so it'd still be given to them for nothing. So that's the way I think we should go.
Well, I agree. You're probably, I don't think that's a problem.
Is there any other thought about that?
Well, Mr. Holman had concerns you weren't here last month, I don't think, so the month before. And I voted kind of no last month because you weren't here to express your concerns. I have no problems with, like Garland says, giving it to the Habitat for Humanities if it's legal. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Holman.
Well, my only concern is, and I think you're a wonderful organization, don't get me wrong on that, but it is taxpayer dollars. And if we give taxpayer dollars away to a nonprofit, if that's what you are, we're opening up doors to give other nonprofit taxpayer dollars. Because the bottom line, that's what that is. There was money spent to renovate that. I believe that's correct, but the appraised value wasn't even what the renovation was. So that's just my whole concern, what
You're-
we're opening up.
you're not gonna-
I can agree with Garland, it's very immaterial when you look at the big picture. I don't have an issue with that either, but except it is taxpayer dollars.
But you're not gonna sell it for what they've got it appraised at, though.
Then that's, my whole discussion was last time, why don't we just put it up for auction? If it brings $1, then we're through with it at that point in time. A public auction will set the appraised value of that piece of property, whatever it brings. And I see Bill back there in the back, he spent his good part of his life in real estate, but would that not be, ever what that brought at auction, that's what the appraised value would be? I think that would be pretty fair. But it might not. That's right.
Well,
I like the idea of $1,000 and then have a fundraiser.
that's what was approved. If there is no other recommendation, all those in favor of that, say aye.
Just to keep the tally book square, Mr. Smith, your arrival at the $1,000 number, the $1,000 is just part of what you consider, what you're calling consideration for it, right?
Correct.
There's other benefits that the city's gonna get out of it other than just cash.
Right, you're gonna have property value, stabilization with that neighborhood. It will improve the neighborhood with a structure that has a family on it. You're providing affordable housing within the city. Those are things in exchange for the taxpayer dollars that were used to remove the old structure, which totaled up to about $6,500. So there's non-monetary consideration there, but what that value is hard to quantify when you're talking about actual cash that was used. So that's why $1,000 was set. I had an appraisal done on the property and it came at $6,000. So whether there's $1,000 plus the non-monetary consideration, which is the property value stabilization, the improving of the neighborhoods, if that's close to 5,000 or 6,000, then it should make this a valid sale.
Right, just so everybody understands what we're talking about here, how long has the city owned that piece of property?
I would say roughly 7 to 8 years, I believe.
And that's tax money we've lost.
Well, it's
And not gaining
it's not gain, it's gone exempt after that first year, so it's not on the tax rolls currently.
That's what my point.
Any other comments or discussions? So, as I understand it, I'm not real sure that I do, but the proposal was then to modify the original recommendation and that the price tag for this be $1,000 and that the city will be opening up something for donation to offset the cost of that $1,000. Is that
is that in a
everyone
motion?
else's, is that everyone else's understanding?
Yeah. I believe that's right. And was that a motion from the committee?
Yeah, it's a motion. Oh, okay, he's talking.
Everybody understand? Yeah.
Okay,
All
you
right,
heard,
that was presented in the form of a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
yes.
Okay. I believe the ayes have it.
Who voted no?
Do you have anything else for us, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I do. From that 11th October meeting, we had items 2 through 9 that were approved, and I'm going to make a recommendation that we move those forward to the council in the form of a motion in bulk, and that is my motion.
Council, you heard the motion. This is for items 2 through 9. Is there any discussion or any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Did you have anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Nothing. Well,
You got
yes, in
tonight's.
regard to that meeting, we do have 2 items that we had on our agenda for this evening, earlier this evening, that were passed by the Finance Committee. Item 1 and 2 that you have before you, and I present both of those to you at once in the form of a motion.
Okay, Council, you heard the motion. This is items 1 and 2 from tonight's finance agenda. Is there any other discussion?
What is the cost associated with the, item number 1, associated with the representative of the city?
There's no cost. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Stuber, we have an item on here for you.
Yes, Mayor, we did meet and approve the job description for the job description for the director of the Aquatic Center, and we recommended a starting salary of between $35,000 and $45,000, which has already been approved in the Finance Committee. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to vote to approve that job description, Mr. Smith?
Yes.
We need to see it
Okay.
first.
Is that in the form of a motion to approve that job position from the committee?
Yes, yes.
Okay, is everybody clear? Finance Committee voted to approve the salary range. Personnel Committee voted on the job description. And so the motion is for the council to approve the job description for the director. Is there any discussion on that?
I haven't seen it. Go ahead.
I guess that description did not get in here.
I don't see it. Can we bring that description back next month?
Certainly.
I thought we approved that before. The description, I thought what was waiting was the amount from the Finance Committee, if I remember correct, Mr. Mayor.
Whoops.
I may be wrong, but we approved that job description at our Personnel Committee meeting, and we briefly talked about that job description at our agenda meeting 2 Tuesdays ago, I think. But the council has not approved
Seen
it.
it.
Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we have.
The problem with pushing it another month is I
Yeah.
think Mac wants to get moving on the posting
That's
rather
correct.
than wait another month.
Yeah, we went in pretty great detail about that at that time. I think it's pretty well cut and dried, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Well, we do have a motion. I suppose if that motion fails, we can bring it back next month. On the other hand, the committee has recommended it for approval in the form of a motion. So if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else for you, Mr. Chairman Stuber?
That's all I have, thank you.
That'll bring us to old business item 1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. have some information here. Have a young lady with us, Autumn Hurst from CSI, who has been involved with some very informative information provided through a survey that she would like to report to us at this time on that. Ms. Hurst?
Mayor Horton for having me back. The survey that I have completed, it's from 200, so far I've collected 251 responses, and I'm still getting responses. This survey, these results are up through, it's been about a little over 30 days that I've been collecting responses. And like I said, I still am gathering more information from surveys that I'm getting back still. One of the questions on the survey was for them to give me their age, and 79.25% of the survey takers were 15 and 16 years of age. Another question was, when you go inside a convenience store or supermarket, retail store, or gas station, how often do you see ads or promotions for cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or other tobacco products? Out of that, for inside ad promotions, 80.55% of the survey takers said that they most of the time or always see those ads inside. Another one was, during the past 30 days, how often did you see any ads or promotions for cigarettes or other tobacco products that were advertised outside of a store? And out of those survey takers, 65.48% said sometimes, most of the time, or always they noticed those ads from the outside of the stores. Another question was, rate how easy it would be for you to access tobacco products. And 62.15% of those survey takers said it was very easy or somewhat easy to obtain those products. Another question, do you believe the tobacco companies try to influence young people under 18 years old to use tobacco products? 63.84% of those survey takers said yes, tobacco companies do try to influence the young people. Another one was, during the past 30 days, how often did you see any ads or promotions for alcohol that were seen outside of a retail store? And 57.51% of those survey takers, ages 15 and 16, said that most of the time or always they noticed those types of ads outside of a store. Another one was, do you know anyone your age that has had alcohol or tobacco purchased for them? And 65.34% of those survey takers know someone who has had tobacco or alcohol purchased for them. This was just some of the highlights that I took from the survey, because as I said, I'm still collecting data and I'm still getting surveys back, and this was just from the Russellville School District.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hurst. Does anybody have any questions in regard to that at this time?
The alcohol, where did you get that at? We don't.
I wanted it not to be just pinpointed towards tobacco.
Well, what did that have to do with Russellville, alcohol?
Well,
I don't know any store in Russellville that advertises alcohol.
Well, it was just from retail stores, period, that those individuals have gone to.
So that could be in Marlton or wherever. Little Rock or wherever.
Possibly.
Okay, I thought this survey was done here in Russellville.
It was. It was Russellville School District.
Okay.
How many responses have you had from this survey?
Up through last Friday, I had 251 youth that had completed the survey. Okay. And as I said, I'm still getting surveys completed. And I'm hoping to collect another 30 days worth of surveys so that I could come back and present those results as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Hurst.
All right, that'll bring us to new business item 1. This is an ordinance to rezone property.
Make a motion to suspend the rules, read by title only with short explanation.
Thank you. Motion is to suspend the rules, read one time by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Mr. Harris is opposed. Motion carries to suspend the rules. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance rezones certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would rezone property that is currently R3 and C2 to M1 located at 2401 South Arkansas Avenue. As further described, the attachment is labeled Exhibit A.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any discussion on this? Would you call the roll, ma'am?
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Holman,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Miss Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Westcott.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We got a email today that said they do not need the emergency clause? Correct. Okay. In that case, the motion carries. That'll bring us to item 2. This is an ordinance amending the zoning code, changes in the code itself. Would
Make a motion
anybody
to
like
suspend the rules, read by title only with short explanation.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend.
I'll
One
second
time.
that.
Second by Mr. Westcott. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read one time by title only, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of Russellville, Arkansas, which is ordinance number 1966, and for other purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would make amendments to the current Russellville zoning code, ordinance number 1966. In regards to plan unit development zones, planning commission and staff committees, long-range planning committee, and board of adjustment special exceptions, which are located in Article 2, Section 2.16, Article 1, Section 1.12, and Article 9, Section 9.1, respectively, which are further described as Exhibit A attached to this ordinance.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Wiley, second, Mr. Westcott. Is there any discussion on this? In that case, would you call the roll, please?
Miss Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Holman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber.
Yes.
So the motion carries. In that same email, they requested that we consider the emergency clause. They have 2 clients waiting on approval. I would entertain a motion there.
Move to approve the emergency.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Eaton, a second from Ms. Harris to adopt the emergency clause. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Garza? Thank you. Item 3, resolution levying millage taxes on property in the city.
Motion.
Second.
Can we have some discussion,
Yeah.
or is it passed?
We can, yes.
It was suggested that we do 2 meals for the police and 6 for the firemen without raising millage.
That would be new for me.
She can do it in a minute.
You could do an amendment
Mr.,
for it. Mr. McCoy, I
McCoy.
believe, asked for 4 and 8.
I think, from what I understand, one of the reasons for this is to make this particular fund actuarially sound. And although I'm not involved with that particular thing at this time, I do know from past experience we have had an issue going forward for a number of years where that fund is not actuarially sound. And by doing that, we can we can make it actuarially sound if and when the time comes that we have not reached that level. The city will be out the money out of our general fund to make up the difference in that particular retirement fund. So it's my recommendation that we go with what was recommended there.
Is that 0.4% or is that 4?
That would be 0.8
.4 for police.
and 0.8 for fire
Yeah.
on that fund.
Mr. McCoy, do a little quick math in your
Yes.
head. On a $200,000 house, how much extra are we gonna be asking people on their property tax?
Be approximately $1 a year.
Dollar.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
a $200,000 house, we're asking them to put up an extra $1.
This is for your retired firemen that took care of your,
They were
City.
all volunteers
All
at
volunteers.
that time,
That's
and
correct.
I think we need to give them credit for that.
Well, it's not about giving them credit or anything, it was just about raising just the numbers, I guess,
Yeah,
the
what we-
millage
Yeah,
on the taxes.
That buck
Because
is
we're
going to
just
hurt
about,
somebody.
we're just about funded 100% for the firemen, have we not?
for the firemen, we're 0.43% funded.
Police.
Police
I
are
mean,
100%.
please.
They're
I'm sorry.
100% funded, which they're level. That means if we bring it down, we're gonna go down. We've got to stay at a steady,
Yeah, well, we went over this several years ago.
and when we have 6 police that are on the draw, when one goes, we're gonna have to take them to lot fee. You are, but
So-
the 6 police is what counts. When I lose a policeman, I have to take you to lot fee. Doesn't matter how many widows I got. I've got 33 firemen on this, that we can continue to try to get this funded where the city will not be out $3 million when they have to go to lot fee.
And that's where we're headed right now.
Yeah.
So from the,
Because we're gonna have to pay the bill whether we pay it today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
you and I had a discussion the other day, and you can help me remember some of the points that were made, but on the policeman, it's 100% allocated at this point, right?
Funded.
Funded,
Yes, sir.
okay. When we go to Lofty, will they expect the 100% funding, or will it be something between 100% and 50%?
No, they expect it all.
They will expect it all?
Yes.
What will be, well, okay, let me rephrase that question. What will we be required to pay?
If I'm thinking right on the police, and I'd have to go get it out of my book, but it's somewhere around $850,000 besides what they have in the fund.
In addition to what we have right now?
Yes, what they have. They have a fund with Charles Schwab that's like $4 million. And that's how we're paying them, along with the millage from the citizens.
What, so how much time, I mean, so here's where I am, just straight up. Raising taxes on taxpayer bothers me. I understand our obligation. Don't want to default on that, don't want to sway that, but I guess in respect to Ms. Harris' recommendation, 0.6.2, will that get us where we need to be?
No. Because then when we'll start going backwards in the police fund.
But how much longer, somehow I was told this fire department is so fully funded that it doesn't make any real difference with this 2% versus 4%. But the 6% would bring the firemen up good enough that we shouldn't have to raise the millage. Okay, policemen 2 meals, firemen 6 meals,
If we
okay?
go to 2 meals, we'll go backwards on the police.
How important is that?
Well, it's really important because we're going to have to make up the difference out of the general fund when something happens.
800,000.
Out of the fund that we just talked about, I'm only getting less than 1% increase over the same year last year. That's where that's going to have to come from.
Well, I'll trust your judgment. I just threw this out because this was what was
I understand.
recommended. Okay.
So it takes the 0.4 mils just to sustain?
Sustain, yes.
Okay, and on the 0.8 mils, how long will it take us to get where you think we need to be?
6 years.
Do we have 6 years?
Do we have 6 years?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have more than 6 years?
Possibly. You got 33 members.
Okay, so theoretically then, we could go
We could go
lower
lower at the,
on the
when we
fire
get, when we
department
get stable.
and still be on track in the time frame that we have to get where we need to be.
Possibly.
So could we go 0.6 mils for the fire department, 0.4 mils for the police department, and thereby, and then only by raising the mills 0.2, and still kind of be on track?
Yes, sir.
What, I know the issue here is the statement of raising taxes. I just heard Mr. McCoy say on a $200,000 house or piece of property, that would be raising that individual's annual payment by about $1. How many of us go to the coffee shop and spend more than that on a cup of coffee? Now, we're talking about firemen that some of them spent many, many years trying to help and preserve property and life in the city of Russellville, and we're not willing to stick our neck out and say, let's take care of these folks. I have a real problem with
But
that.
are we talking about denying them any benefits? I don't think so. I think in the end, the result will be the same. It's just a matter of whether we switch the millage
Well,
around.
I'm not sure how long the actuary will allow that to go on if we continue to go south with this thing.
So, you know, when you get into national politics, there's a lot of rhetoric about taking benefits away, et cetera, and that's not what we're talking about here.
No,
We're
it's
just
not.
trying to determine what the appropriate millage is to get us where we need to be.
Correct.
And if it's 0.8, it's 0.8. If it's 0.6, it's 0.6. And that's all we're trying to ascertain here. That's all I'm trying to ascertain.
Well,
is
it
where
is.
we need to be. Do we need to be aggressive, or can we take our time? And, you know, I'd just soon give the taxpayer back 50 cents and let them go buy that cup of coffee personally, if we can still meet our goals and do that. So, that's my thoughts.
Are you?
I'm making a motion that we
wait a
go.
minute. Are you making that a motion to amend?
I'll make a motion to amend to 0.6 mils and 0.4 mils.
Ms. Harris, do you want a second, or does anybody else want a second?
What was
that?
his motion? I didn't hear his motion. 2 and 6 or 4 and 4?
0.6 and 0.4.
0.6 and 0.4. I'll second that motion.
We got a motion and a second to amend item 3 to 0.4 mils for police and 0.6 for fire in order to save property owners 50 cents a year.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I guess we're gonna have to call the roll.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
No.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Eaton?
No.
Mr. Holman?
I abstain. I'm going to be Polk County Treasurer the first of the year, and I'll be dispersing those funds, so I don't feel like I need to vote on this issue.
Thank you.
That's a no vote.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
No.
Fail.
That's 3 affirmative votes. Motion to amend fails, which brings us back to the original
4 and 8.
Mr.
4 and 8.
Mayor, I recommend that we go with the proposed amounts on that of 4 and 8, and that is in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, Mr. Eaton, and a second from Mr. Westcott. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4, consideration of a resolution authorizing mayor and city clerk to sign an easement. Mr. Smith? Well, first we need a motion.
I move that
I
we,
believe we got a motion. I believe Mr. Wiley was first, Mr. Eaton second.
yes.
Now discussion. Mr. Smith, tell us what we're doing here.
This is just a exchange of easements across the city's property and across property owned by Kevin and Rena Smoke. This has been advocated by the Parks and Rec Department because this will allow Parks and Rec Department access to from a different way to the Confederate Mothers Memorial Park, which will help the department be able to maintain that park and access more of the park that way. So it was recommended by the Parks and Rec Department to proceed with this easement exchange so that we can cross over the Smokes property, and the Smokes can also cross over the corner of the city property.
We have a motion and a second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 is discussion concerning the economic development and grant writer position. This is both finance and personnel committees.
Mr. Mayor, under the circumstances that we have had earlier tonight in regard to the Alliance, I would recommend that we table this particular item.
I'd second that.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Motion, Mr. Eaton, to table. Second was Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor of tabling item 5, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6, consideration and discussion, approval of a resolution to issue a special use permit denied by the Planning Commission for property located at 407 North El Paso Avenue. This is an
Mayor,
appeal
I-
submitted by Ms. Donna Andrews.
I move that we approve this resolution.
Granting, your motion is to grant the special use permit?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody understand that?
Yes, I second
We have a motion, Mr. Stuber, to approve, and a second, Mr. Westcott.
Okay.
Discussion?
The planning commission denied this. What was their vote? Do you know?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimously.
Okay. I'm not part of it.
But the bottom line is they're asking to put an automotive repair shop in that location, and that's what has been there. And if you disallow this, you're, in my opinion, depreciating that property because, you know, that's really what it's built to house. And instead of bringing business to town, we're running it out.
Okay, why are they getting a special use permit then if it was a garage, if it's a garage and they're gonna put a garage in there?
Well, that's what's been in there,
Yeah, why are they getting a special use permit, do you know?
It was closed. The
It was-
previous owner was sick. Ms. Andrews, would you like to? Yeah.
I know that's what's there.
I don't really know why. Laquita told me that my past renters was not required to have one, or else it was like Watergate tapes, it got lost. Because I know they are pushing hard to get El Paso changed to be more friendly to tech. And I have it rented to someone that's very clean. He already has a business here in town. He has very few vehicles out front. So if you wanted to put some restrictions, you know, I'd go along with that. But I want it to be as clean and as well kept as anyone.
Well, why did they make you go with a special use permit? I don't understand that.
Because it's on C2, and that is one of the things that's listed under C2 to get a special use permit. There's a few things I could do without one. And I've been approached to rent it to doing just such. But it is a garage, and
Yeah, I
I'd
know it's a
have to
garage.
spend a lot more money on it to get it, you know, I could have it, I think James Walden said I could have it for a vet clinic. Well, a vet clinic is a long shot from what it is now.
I think our city attorney has some insight on Mr. Wiley's question as why it's required now.
Initially, on a C2, it didn't require a special use permit for, back when the first business was there, and then there was inactivity. And I think during that time, maybe even before the first business was still in business, the table of permitted uses were changed so that this type of activity in a C2 required a special use permit. So that's why the new business that now wants to come in is required for a special use permit.
Is that still C2?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews, did you say do I remember the meeting that night? There was some work you were gonna do on the building?
Oh, absolutely. I intend to paint it, clean up around it, get all of the overgrowth off. I like for it to look good too.
Is that gonna require, Trey, is it gonna require that the parking lot be hard surfaced, or do I remember that being part of the discussion?
There is nothing with this resolution now, so if the resolution needs to be added with some stipulations such as that, we can put them in tonight.
Call for the question.
Anybody else?
Well, one more question. Did the Board of Adjustments also make a ruling on this?
No.
You did not go before the Board of Adjustments?
I don't like to vote against the planning board.
All right, any other discussion?
I don't like to vote against the planning board. They got their
All
job
right.
too.
Just like Mr. Stuber said, it is a garage, it's always been a garage, and a lot of citizens that I've been talking to says, why would they not let you have that since it's been a garage forever, and now they're turning you down? You know, I'm getting $800 a month, and I need that.
You know, I just don't see why we would oppose someone putting a business, the same type of business, back in at the same location. You know, if some other entity in the city wants to control what goes on in that neighborhood, they need to buy the property and control it. But until they do that, it belongs to private individuals. And I don't think we as a city council should be denying them the right to open up a business or continue the same business that's been in that location for years. And even if some other entity in the city wants to control that property, it's going to be a long time before they get down there. You know, and when that property gets to be worth more for other things than it is a garage, I'm going to suspect the garage will not stay there.
That's right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I feel that way.
Question?
You know, if we don't allow this, we're depreciating, in my opinion, that property. The city has been sued for just that same thing in the past, and they lost over here on 12th Street.
Any other discussion?
Not take a call question.
All right, then, would you call the roll? I think we'll probably, sound like we may have a split vote.
Miss Freddie Harris,
What am I voting for?
The
You
motion,
voted for it.
let me restate it. The motion is to approve the special use permit.
I know I'm not supposed to comment, but I want to. That street is supposed to be the beautiful street, so I vote no.
That's a hard one for me.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Eaton,
No.
Mr. Holman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Motion carries. That'll bring us to item 7, ordinance amending ordinance number 913, establishing the Civil Service Commission.
Move to approve that ordinance, but first read it by title only with a short explanation.
Okay, so you want to suspend the rules?
Yes, I do,
Read
Mr.
one
Mayor.
time?
One time,
By title only.
yes.
All right, so we need a second on the
I'll
motion
second
to
that.
suspend. We have that from Mr. Westcott. So, motion to suspend the rules, read one time by title only. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Smith?
An ordinance amending ordinance number 913, which established the Civil Service Commission for the police and fire departments of the city of Russellville, Arkansas, to expand the number of civil service commissioners from 5 to 7 members and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would expand the current Russellville Civil Service Commission from 5 to 7 members. In order to pass this ordinance, since it was originally voted in by the people, it will require a 2/3 vote according to the Arkansas Constitution, Article 5, Section 1.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. Holman?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
Yes.
Motion carries. Do we need to do an
Motion to
emergency
adjourn.
clause on that?
Do we need,
There is one, but whether, it
well, let's,
couldn't hurt.
I will move then that we adopt
We
the
need to adopt
emergency
the
clause. I
emergency
think
clause.
they're needing that right away.
Yes.
Okay, so.
That is
Mr.
my motion.
Motion for Mr. Eaton, second Ms. Harris.
Yes.
On the emergency clause. Call the roll on the emergency clause, please.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. Holman?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
Yes.
The emergency clause carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you all.